Well, welcome to a Pastor's Cafe, and hopefully you survived the Thanksgiving holiday and eating way too much,
Yeah.
especially way too much pie and
Lots of family
lots of.
interaction.
Oh yeah. Mine was stressful.
Was it really?
No, it wasn't. There was no stress at all.
No stress.
No stress at all.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
But anyways, welcome back to the show. It is now in December, and wow, this is episode number 31.
Can you believe
I know.
Christmas is almost here?
Yep,
Wow.
I know.
Fast.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. We'll be back in just a moment. All right. Well, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, David. I'm here with Pastor Steve Kern, and we have some more questions to discuss today.
Yes.
All right. Are you ready to jump into it?
I am. I'm
Okay.
ready.
We're talking about faith and everyday challenges. Question number 1, how can believers maintain their faith and trust in God when life feels overwhelming or uncertain?
Well, I think the best way to do that, if you read the Bible very much, you're going to run into a whole lot of people who have, overwhelming circumstances and an uncertainty about, okay, what's God doing here and that kind of a thing. And there's a lot of
like
things.
Job?
Like Job. Moses when he's trying to lead the people. All the different. David when he's trying to lead the people, and and Paul, and in the New Testament, a lot of the things that. Even what Jesus had to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a certain amount. If you stay in the Word, there's an answer there.
Mm-hmm.
When situations come up and circumstances that you're trying to gain some kind of a Lord, what in the world are you doing kind of thing, and we all run into that, whether it's with our kids and family and that kind of a thing, or job or church or whatever. And I just think that you got to stay in the Word. You just got to stay in the Word. And I think it's a good thing for people to have a system where they're reading so much, at least a chapter or so a day. I try to do that at least. Try to really read through the Bible every year.
Every year, yeah.
To just stay in that, and then too, I think it's also good to have. I'm glad that our church, we have what called small groups, and churches are doing small groups, where you have a group of people that you come together and in Bible study or whatever, but then you can kind of share. One another's burdens, and when you encounter the fact that other people are dealing with stuff too, you can kind of encourage one another.
Sure.
And so I think it's good to be a part of a group of people. Some churches call it Sunday school, some call it small groups. Some meet on Sunday morning, some meet during the week, that kind of thing. But I think there's a real a value, a real benefit in having that kind of moral support, and that's what. I think Paul wrote Hebrews, and that's what he said in Hebrews chapter 10: "Forsake not the assembling of yourselves together."
Yeah.
And his point there is you need each other to encourage one another and lift each other up. So I really think that staying in the Word, praying, asking God, Lord, what's going on here? I mean, he's not intimidated by that.
Sure.
He's not intimidated when we question him and all. Because if we're really wanting to know, honest about it and all, we're not mad at him. We're wanting to be faithful.
Sure, yeah.
That kind of thing. So anyway, but yeah, life can be overwhelming and a lot of uncertainty and that kind of thing. And that's why you need to realize that Christianity wasn't intended to be a walk in the park. And if you really live your Christian life out in the public and try to be a Christian out there, outside of the church, you're going to run into a lot of resistance
Yeah.
to who you are and what you're trying to be,
Sure. Yeah.
because you become light in the midst of the dark, and the dark doesn't want to have the light exposing what they're trying to hide in their darkness. And so anyway, but yeah, staying in the Word, being a part, and of course the worship services, where you're all together and worshiping and all that is important too. But I think that having the small groups where you're able to take an issue and talk about it, and then find out, hey, other people have been dealing with this at times, and so so I think that's probably the best answer.
Okay. I have a question that kind of goes along with that in a certain way. And I hate to put you on the spot.
Oh, dear me.
Let's say you have someone who came to you and they're a younger person, let's say in their early 20s, and they really have never read the Bible. They know a little bit about church and whatnot, but they've lived their life and they're going through, a season in their life where they're experiencing depression, or they feel overwhelmed, and they come to the church for help. And then as a pastor, as a Bible scholar, I'm just kind of curious what your opinion is on which Bible we should recommend someone who's new at Christianity, hasn't really read the Bible. And the reason why I ask that is because I've heard just a few people in my lifetime say that people should only read the King James Version, and that should be the only version that you read. And I've heard other people say, who have started to read the Bible for the very first time, they can't get past the these and thous and some of the applications, different applications of certain words.
Yeah.
So they found the NIV easier to read. And I'm just kind of curious, what is your opinion, and what would you do in that circumstance this is all an opinion, so I'm just asking for your expertise here.
Well, in my 40 years of preaching, I settled on the New American Standard and used that
Okay.
For that very reason, because I found that oftentimes trying to preach from the King James, you go through and you get a word and you have to explain the word and that kind of thing, and in the New American Standard, it's already there.
Yeah.
You don't have to make that explanation. And so, and then too, when I go down to the prisons, that's a big deal there. I got a lot of those guys barely know how to read, and really have a hard time with the King James. And we do pass out a contemporary English translation for them, simply because it's something they can relate to.
Sure.
And so, really, if you got the right kind of the translation that that though the interpreters, the people that did the interpreting, were following the text as closely as they possibly could, and I think that really that's what they really need is a kind of a Bible that doesn't compromise the truth, but that speaks it in their language.
Sure.
To me, okay, you go to Africa, well, they really need a Bible in Swahili, not in King James. You know what I mean? I say Swahili because I've got a ministry in Kenya where that's what they speak. But anyway, any part of that's why I've never been able to understand this in King James only, because what about all the other countries in the world where they don't speak English, and so anyway, so but yeah, I think that it's important to give them the word that is correctly interpreted, but it speaks it in a way that
Sure.
they can relate to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Question number 2. What are some practical ways Christians can live out their faith at work or in school without compromising their values?
Well, I think the very first thing is practical, is you have to have a predetermined commitment to living out your faith.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, and before you ever get into the situations and circumstances,
Sure.
because then if you've done that, then you don't have to, when you get to a situation, you don't have to decide then which way you're going to go. You've already decided.
Mm-hmm.
You've already committed to that.
Yeah.
Regardless of what circumstances are you encounter. So I think that's very practical, and then too, I think it's important for you to communicate that you are a Christian, that you do have that you have your faith is in Jesus. Without you can do that without preaching or or feeling like you have to convince them to see things your way, but that you're not ashamed of it either.
Yeah.
And I think people would respect that.
Mm-hmm.
That you have this commitment that's meaningful to you. And then as they see you living your life out in the midst of your work and the kind of work you do and the way you do it, hopefully you're going to be doing it in the way that's an expression of Jesus, how Jesus would have us do it. But yeah, I think, a lot of times we're so compartmentalized.
Yeah.
When I'm at work, here I am. When I'm at church, here I am. When I'm out here I am doing that. No, when you make that commitment that I'm going to be a Christian regardless of where I am, there's no compartmentalization there. This is who I am, and you're committing this a follower of Jesus Christ, surrender to Him.
Yeah.
And you've made that personal commitment within yourself before you ever get into all the circumstances. Then I think that people respect you for that.
Yeah.
And so, but you don't want to get into a situation where every time you run into a certain, well, how should I do this? That kind of a thing. But you already are committed to doing what you know that you need to do. So even if it's maybe not popular or something that I've had people in my churches that basically when they did take a stand, they had to go and find another job because they weren't offensive or anything. It's just that basically the people that they were working for didn't want that kind of a person working for them. You know what I mean? I had a young man up in when I was pastoring in Boise, Idaho. He just took his Bible to work, and he would read his Bible during lunch. Well, they started giving him a hard time about that, And finally, he ended up losing his job because the people there kept complaining about him just
keeping to himself. And
wow. So you never know, but really. That wasn't a bad thing for him because it strengthened his faith that he was willing to sacrifice, pay the price for trying to be faithful to his faith. Sometimes that can be a growing experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, next question. We're talking about building community. How can churches create a stronger sense of belonging for people who feel isolated or disconnected?
Yes. Are you talking about belonging in the church and in the church community? Or I'm sure that's what you're meaning.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's very important, I think, when people become, well, usually when somebody is coming to a church and they're checking it out, what are they looking for? They're looking to see, okay, is this some place where I can belong?
Yeah.
Where I'm going to be given the opportunity to be a part
Exactly.
of the of the group.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important then that the church itself and the people within the church, when they see somebody that's there, hey, how you doing? Welcome, that kind of a thing. And invite them to, hey, I'm doing this or like that, I like to, when I see somebody that's coming to church, somebody that's visited church, invite them to lunch or something after church.
Mm-hmm.
Those kinds of things that are really goes the next, rather than just, hey, how you doing? We're glad you're here type thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all people need. And people sometimes will say, well, I just can't do that today, but thanks for asking,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a thing. So, and then giving them something to do.
Yeah.
Giving them something to do. If they're, especially, if they're if they decide to join, they become a member, I think it's important to give them something to do pretty quick,
Mm-hmm.
to get them to become a part of what's going on.
Sure.
And so either if it's just an usher, or if it's just there's all different kinds of things you can have people doing that will like I remember when I was at Olivet, we had this one couple that joined, and one of the things they liked to do was they started going around cleaning out our flower beds and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and people appreciated the fact, hey, things look a lot better around here.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. But yeah, giving them, and of course, being a part of a group, and then having some kind of responsibility that allows them to contribute some service
Mm-hmm.
in one way or another. I think that's really important. But then there are some folks that they just want to come and that's it,
Sure. Yeah.
But really, you really need to make it very clear that when you come to be a part of us, you're going to be given the opportunity to contribute
Mm-hmm.
and to be a part of what we're trying to do here. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's pretty much the way to help them not to be isolated and disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Throw your curveball real quick. Let's wrap it up with this question.
Okay, let's hear it.
Let's hear it because it's not on the paper.
Oh, dear me.
So what can we
That
do?
makes me nervous.
What can we do as individuals to help other people?
As individuals in the church to help other people.
Yeah. Is it as easy as smiling?
I think so. If one thing we can do is try to get to know other people.
Oh, yeah.
Just so oftentimes it's so easy just to come, and leave and not,
Mm-hmm.
instead of kind of stand around. Hi, introduce yourself, get to know people, and get acquainted. But yeah, I think a smile, a lot of times. I don't know about hugging, but because some people might think,
Yeah.
but a pat on the back or some,
Mm-hmm.
way that has some kind of touching without being offensive.
Sure. Yeah.
Shaking a hand, that kind of a thing. Wanting to know their name.
Mm-hmm.
That's very important.
Yeah.
When hi, what's your name?
Do you think it's rude to ask someone to say their name again? just
Again.
I think a lot of people, when they meet someone, they quickly forget their name.
Yeah.
Is it okay to ask?
I think that first time, because you're just now getting acquainted.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure I get this right, kind of.
Yeah.
But it is embarrassing when and then you can't remember. And especially if you're someone like me who has a really terrible about remembering names. But
that is an awkward moment because, in the classroom,
yeah,
and you're looking at a student and you want to call on them, but you can't remember their name. I mean, it's
hey, you.
Yeah.
Now, what was your name?
I would always ask my students always to sit in the same place.
Yeah.
And that way I would get, used to it. And then it helped me with, facial recognition. And then that seat belongs to, Steven, that seat over there belongs to Sally.
Right. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, in church, except for visitors, usually everybody sits in the same place every time.
Oh, see, that's another thing about churches that's hilarious. Don't you know that this pew has been in the family tradition for over 50 years,
You're sitting in
my seat. It's amazing on how that can be such an issue. And I feel sorry for new people in the church that sit down and all of a sudden people start staring at them.
You're in my seat.
You're in my seat.
That is a problem. I tell you, it is. Especially when you got an older church that's you got a lot of tradition, a lot of background,
Yeah.
I think that's one reason why a lot of young pastors going to seminary, they're training to start churches rather than to go and take over a church that's been around.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you start a church, you don't have to deal with the tradition.
Yeah.
And all that kind of thing. You can just kind of, okay, this is the way I think it needs to go, and just start putting it together and not worry about it. But anyway, I remember hearing the story about Rick Warren when he started church, that huge church over in Orange County, California, and people would come and start making suggestions about how to do things. And from where the church they came from, we did it this way. And his basic response was, well, if that's really what you want, well, there's a church down here that's the way they do it. So that's where you might fit in better there. Trying to be nice about it, but saying, hey, I've got a vision. I know how we're doing this, and we're moving it in this. And so yeah. But it's I think, but being genuine, people know when you're genuine, and you really do want to know who they are. You really are glad that they're there. You're not just doing what you're expected to do.
Sure, yeah.
And sometimes that's hard to do when you're not in a good mood that day.
Sure, yeah.
And that kind of thing. You got other things going on. But I think it's so important in the church that when new people come in, that, man, they've got somebody. And I like it. We have parking lot where the people are out there and hey, come in, and new people, and show them where they can, which doors are the best doors to go in, and that kind of thing. And then when they go in, they run into they're welcome. There's somebody there at the door to welcome, and we have a lot of that.
Yeah.
Here, so and that's good. And then when they're sitting in the auditorium waiting for service to start, so hey, I don't know that I know you, that kind of thing. It's important.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of that goes on here.
Yeah.
So
good. Yeah. Okay. Very helpful information. All right.
Well, I hope it's helpful.
Yeah. It's always good to talk to you.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
I enjoy it too.
Well, good. So that's a wrap on episode number 31. We'll be back next week with 32.
32.
Well, until next time, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. And remember, if you got a question yourself, email us at the email below. So take care. We'll see you next time, and bye-bye.